Part two of my $20,000 dream on a $1,000 budget and my personal tribute to a great friend is coming up. When we last left off, my nephew Charlie had gotten me back into music after a long hiatus. We wrote music together and he introduced me to some friends, and we formed a band and played almost weekly in a studio. It was around this time that things began to happen very, very quickly. So quickly it may be difficult to make sense out of it all, but I'll do my best. I got reconnected with some old friends from my early days in music, and one thing led to another. One of these old friends was Lou L.A. Cavares. Lou had a studio in his basement, and he would invite me over, and we'd go down there to the studio and hang out. It was amazing. I mean, it was, control room and everything. It was just like what you see on TV. It was incredible. We became very close again over a short period, talking about music in old times. It was like we just saw each other the day before. He was in a band called Goodfellas at the time, and he would let me know places they were playing, mostly nearby on Long Island, so I would go down to see them. One place in particular was called Classics. And Lou invited me up, and I joined in on a song or two. It was great. There's nothing like playing in front of an audience versus playing in a studio. They're both fun, but you get an energy from an audience. Shortly after Goodfellas disbanded, and Lou and I began playing together with a couple of other old friends, and we borrowed the Goodfellas name for a short time. One of the places we played was called Jake's, a small bar and grill in West Islip. Karaoke was on Tuesday nights, run by Joe McGlone, and I happened to go down one night. Joe would sing a few songs when no one was scheduled up, and I thought he had an amazing voice, like Jay Black of Jay and the Americans. I asked him if he'd like to join a band, and a short time later, the Untouchables was formed. Lou and I became practically inseparable. We would talk on the phone almost every day, and would go to the local guitar center, try out some guitars, go to guitar shows, and just hang out. One day I was over his house, and we just sat on the couch and watched his favorite movie. This is Spinal Tap. I got to know and became friends with some very amazing musicians. One in particular was Ed Gagliardi, the original bass guitarist of Foreigner. Lou and I would go out to Shirley, Long Island, where we played with Ed and other musicians, and we called ourselves the Buka Band because we drank shots of Sambuca in between songs. Ed autographed a copy of the first Foreigner CD for my son. Sadly, Ed passed away from cancer in May of 2014. One of the songs we used to play a lot, and was one of Lou's favorites, was titled Theme for an Imaginary Western, written by Jack Bruce and Pete Brown. Lou also introduced me to one of the salesmen at Guitar Center named John Lemaire. Great guy and an amazing musician. He played as a one-man band, and we would go see him play as well. It was also around this time Lou asked me about joining a wedding band he was in called Fran Diamond and the Hits. I asked what type of music, and he said everything, 40s, 50s, 60s, big band, disco, top 40. Lou had played years earlier with Fran in a couple of rock bands, and they were very close friends. In the middle 70s, Lou had begun playing with a band called Riot, a popular touring band, and Lou recorded a couple of CDs with them. One in particular was called Rock City. You can check out Lou with Riot on YouTube. There are several videos you can find there. As far as the wedding band, I didn't really see myself playing in a high-end wedding band and playing big band and disco music. But Lou talked me into it, and I decided to give it a go. My schedule became so chaotic, working full-time during the day, then learning new songs and rehearsing almost every night, vocal rehearsals, and learning all the harmony parts, plus practicing on my own. It became impossible to fit in Righteous Rhythm, so unfortunately, I had to give that up. As time went on, the Untouchables became very good and very popular, and Lou joined in and became part of that as well. The wedding band became hugely popular. We played showcases and weddings at several venues all throughout Long Island. As I mentioned previously, Lou had a recording studio in the basement of his home, and this was what started me on my quest to create my own version, although it didn't come close. This is my version, not comparable to his. I really enjoyed hanging out with him in his studio. He had great photos on the wall. The equipment was amazing. And I learned a lot about mixing and mastering. We recorded a demo CD with Fran Diamond and the Hits. That was the wedding band that Lou talked me into. And he even appeared on TV in November of 2002. A local cable show titled Something to Talk About, hosted by Bonnie D. Graham. Here's a short interview with Lou.
You guys are marvelous. Thanks for letting me join in there, Fran. That was a real treat. I appreciate it. We have one more person to talk to. Come on over here, tall and handsome. We got 5 minutes, too.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
Lou, what is this toy you've got here? You were telling me what do you call it?
Well, this is my thing that gets me in trouble and also gives me a lot of pleasure. Gives me a lot of happiness.
Okay.
Puts me in a lot of trouble.
This is an adult show. Okay.
Yes, it's not rated X, is it?
It's going to be now. So this is a 6-string.
This is a 6-string guitar, and it's one of my favorite things to do, and I love it completely.
How long have you been playing?
I really don't remember. About 30 years.
Really?
About 30 years.
Are you 30?
I'd like to think I am.
In the womb.
It makes me feel like I'm 30. It makes me feel like I'm 20.
Who are your heroes in the guitar field in terms of performers? Who do you aspire to play like, or who do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I always liked Les Paul, and he was one of my favorites. A lot of the greats like Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck. God, if I name them all, we'll be here for an hour.
So where are you with these guys? How long have you been with them?
I've been with them now for about 4 or 5 years now, and the reason I'm here is because Fran,
yes,
the leader of the band and also my friend for the last, I don't know how many years, asked me to come into the band many years ago, but I was always into my own thing. But I'm very happy I'm in here now, and I'm playing with a bunch of great people, wonderful musicians, talented, and probably the best hearts, I think, that we have on Long Island here. There's a lot of great players.
It comes through in your music,
yes,
too.
It does.
How do you feel about having to make these quick shifts in the medleys, where you're playing one song and all of a sudden, bingo, the beat changes, the song changes, the mood changes, and you're doing something else? Is that a special challenge for a guitar player?
No, not really, because you actually feel it. And
okay.
Like Fran was saying before, we basically put it together. I mean, he comes up with the songs, and we kind of like put it together.
Okay.
And it's basically a feel, and feel it coming.
Well, I feel it's time, since we're running out of time, to get Fran to come over here, and Lisa, and let's introduce the rest of the people in the band. I'm going to hand this mic to you. Fran.
Great, okay. Sorry. All right. Well, hey, look at that. Okay. Right now I'd like to introduce Mark on drums. Okay. Mark on drums. This is our very small-knitted family of good friends. Michael on bass guitar and vocals. We have Johnny Canoli, all the way from Italy. Okay. Sicily, excuse me, I'm sorry, Johnny. Okay, and then on the Fabulous Hits horn section, we have Frank and Chris. Frank on sax, Chris on trumpet. And let's see, of course, one more time, I'm just going to say Lisa, my beautiful cousin, very, very proud. And being that it wasn't said before, I'll just state it for the record. Louis, I've been your best friend for 30 years. Best friend,
My best friend. I'm sorry. He's
We're
right.
getting old, and we're walking around with pocketbooks. Best friend.
Can I just say anything? Alex, I love you.
Michael Daniel, I love you too.
Well, I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause just because you're wonderful, and we don't have a live audience here in the studio for you. This has been absolutely delightful. How much time do I have? I have a wonderful... Yes, darling.
Doesn't Bonnie look exceptionally nice today?
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. Thank you. We have 1 minute left.
The hits became so popular, in addition to playing at weddings all throughout Long Island, we also began playing in nightclubs. In January 2004, we were playing at a function at a private club, and it was during a heavy snowstorm, and it was freezing. There's a lot of heavy lifting with all the equipment and everything, and I began to sweat. I developed a fever and became very weak. I had to sit during the whole show, and I could barely sing. The next day, I went to the doctor and found out that I had pneumonia. Shortly after, I had to give it all up and retire from music. I could no longer deal with the heavy lifting, and my breathing and stamina had diminished greatly. I saved flyers from some of the clubs and events we played at, and recently I put together a short collage. This was when I realized that aside from my nephew Charlie, most likely I wouldn't still be in music to the extent that I am if it were not for Lou. He was in the middle of every bit of success I had. He was the inspiration and the driving force behind my desire, my passion for music, and my need to succeed. In 2019, Lou had met up with original members of Riot. They began playing together and began work on a revival they would call Riot Act. Tour plans began, publicity interviews, and photo sessions. Tour destinations were set up, and Lou and the band were very excited. Then the world was introduced to a devastating and potentially dangerous virus, and the tour was postponed. Lou and the band would have to wait until restrictions could be lifted. However, it was not meant to be. On March 28, 2020, I received a shocking and devastating phone call from another longtime and dear friend, Steve Fabrizio, that Lou had become a victim of the most horrible and deadly disease of our time and had passed away that morning. Steve and I both immediately broke down and cried uncontrollably. Steve said he would keep me informed regarding arrangements, and we hung up. I'd lost many family members in the past. Father, mother, and others, right up to including my brother John, who was my idol growing up. He had passed away in February of 2016. But this was different. Lou was like a brother, a musical brother, but more than that, and reminded me of my own mortality. It took a couple of weeks to come to grips with it. I was shivering for several days, and not from the cold. Still not sure if I have come to grips with it. This is part of the reason I wanted to create this channel. My way of saying thank you. I'm not the best singer in the world. I'm not the best guitarist or musician or songwriter. But Lou was pretty darn close to it, and he made you feel that you were pretty darn good too. Recently, I contacted Lou's son, Alex, to let him know what I had planned. And I wished him only the best in what I'm sure will be a very bright future. This is the message Alex relayed to me, and I quote, "He was a one-of-a-kind guy, and he touched anyone he interacted with, whether it was business, personal, or just in passing. His smile and personality was like no other, and he lit up the room no matter where he was. I miss him dearly, and I think about him every day. Happy you knew him. I appreciate that, and wish you the best as well." End quote. I couldn't agree more, Alex. I have his picture in my studio, hanging near my control unit, and I talk to him from time to time. He's right there. Like his dad before him, He also was a very talented young man and following in his footsteps. His band Motion Year is on the rise. Check them out. Just like Alex said, he was one of a kind. He always had a smile on his face, and I never saw him angry. He is sorely missed, and I am glad and proud that I knew him. Until we meet again.